Okay, welcome along everyone to this event on future-proofing your career in academic libraries. Really great to have so many of you here and so many of you from not only across the UK but across the world. It's really great to see such an attendance. I'm Sean McNamara. I am Director of CILIPS Scotland. We are running this webinar today in partnership with SALCTG and SCURL. I just want to say a quick thank you to both Andrew and Seth at SALCTG for your support in getting this event together, and also thank you to Gillian Daly at SCURL and all the SCURL board for their support in getting this event together. As always, do just keep your microphones off, unless you're one of the speakers, of course. If your mic accidentally goes on, don't worry about it. We can mute you at this end, but do just check just now and just make sure your mics are off to avoid any background noise. Your cameras can be on or off, absolutely up to you. Great for the speakers to see some faces if we can, but equally, when Teams wants to present, you can't see anything anyway. So that's only if you're able to do that. This event we've got a variety of speakers today. Really looking forward to the programme. We have an opening talk from Martina, who I will introduce in a minute. And then we also have, I'm going to round off a little bit about some professional qualifications and values that you may be interested in. And then right in the middle, we've got 4 career journeys, people sharing some of their own experiences in the academic library sector. And so hopefully that will give you a great bit of guidance about, future proofing and just taking your careers forward. Okay, so because we are going to be pressed for time and we've overpacked the programme as always because there's so much great stuff that we want to share, I'll just get on with introducing our opening speaker, who we're delighted to have. So Martina McChrystal is Director of Library Services at the University of Glasgow, a position she's held since 2017. As well as that, she was also President of CILIPS Scotland in 2020, and we also provide Martina with honorary membership a year later. Martina has contributed to loads of things, but some of the key things is being chair of SCURL at the moment, and was also the chair of the advisory group on the strategy for the Scottish School Libraries National Strategy, the first of its kind at the time in the UK, and loads more. Too much here to list, other than Martina is an absolutely brilliant librarian and a great supporter of the profession more widely. Martina is going to talk today about succession planning, future-proofing your career, and we're really pleased to have you, Martina. So I will now pass over to you to take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. Welcome everyone this afternoon. I am absolutely privileged to be speaking to you all this afternoon about future-proofing your career and succession planning. And as Sean has said, I am Director of Library Services at the University of Glasgow, and I'm also the current chair of SCURL, which is the Scottish Confederation of University and Research Libraries. And thanks to all of you in CILIPS and in SCURL and in SALCTG for putting together this afternoon, and hope this will be a really fruitful afternoon for you. I'm certainly looking forward to hearing some of the presentations later. So just a little bit about my own career journey into academic libraries. As Sean has said, most of my career was actually spent in public sector. The bulk of that in Scotland was with the City of Edinburgh Council. Most recently there was at Library and Information Services Manager. I was also involved in local governance in setting up Edinburgh's then neighbourhood partnerships, and also been involved in community engagement. But working with libraries has been with me throughout my professional career, so I'm really, really proud of that. Also with that, I'll talk a little bit throughout this presentation and talk today really about the value of transferable skills, about reflecting where you are, but also where you want to go. And actually, unbelievably, it is this very week, 10 years ago, when I did make the move from public sector into academic libraries. So as I say, I moved into the University of Glasgow, and at that time, that career decision for me was very much based on the opportunities that the University of Glasgow afforded. And as well as that, a lot of work and skills and experience that I'd done in public sector, I felt would transfer quite well across, particularly in things like collections, with working with people and with budgets. But I obviously realised with beginning and moving into a new sector across libraries that also there's a huge amount to learn. So I did spend the first few months obviously immersed in learning, in training, in working with my peers. What I would say for me personally, transferring from sectors was the role of both SCURL and the role of CILIP in Scotland, which was incredibly helpful and supportive to me moving from sectors and obviously bringing across some experience, but also having to learn a great deal more. So that was really, really helpful. SCURL is quite unique in that it represents all of the 19 higher education institutions across Scotland, but also includes the collections and services of the two major library collections, which are in Glasgow and the City of Edinburgh. So they are also members of SCURL, and as well as that, SCURL involves Historic Environment Scotland, and as well as that, the Royal Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh. So a huge raft of different organisations working together. So, and I'll touch on that, I'm going to go into a little piece about networks later on. The knowledge that I gained from both SCURL and CILIPS really did allow me to make, I wouldn't say a seamless move, it was a very interesting move, but certainly to move into sectors was really important for that. So I'm going to focus, first of all, I'm not going to show any slides, I'm just going to speak to this, but please do put any questions into the chat and Sean will pick those up. So I'm first of all going to reflect on your career within your own institution, wherever you may be just now. And also to say that very much about all of the things that we're going to be talking about today is to focus on you as an individual, about where you're going and where you currently are and what you'd like to learn and develop within your current position and where you want to be, whether that's, 3 to 5 years or whether you want to remain as you are. That's really important to do that. So at the University of Glasgow, we've been really fortunate over the last couple of years that our people and organisational development team have put together a University of Glasgow professional services career framework. Quite wordy, but a really impactful piece that's been brought together really to make sure that everyone working in professional services across grades, across different fields and disciplines are able to really work and create an enabling landscape to develop in your career. It's been a fantastic piece of work. It's brought together so many pieces, so many resources, so many toolkits, and of course, so many expert voices out there. So that's really trying to identify as an individual, to identify your career aspirations, participating and in fact engaging in meaningful career conversations, and also the ability to access toolkits and training resources all in one place. As any of you have tried to navigate a number of pages, no matter what it is in an organisation, it takes quite a while to do that. One of the big strengths for the University of Glasgow framework is that it's very much focused on the individual. It's completely confidential. Anything that any member of staff accesses or views is completely anonymised, and it's all about that reflective journey. So it's really allowing you to focus on an individual. What's also really important in terms of that future-proofing piece, so it is about access to resources, it is access to toolkits about different things, but as well as that, it's also how you are managing within your working day-to-day life. So it does have a lot of section on mindfulness, about supporting yourself at work, about work-life balance, all the things that are hugely important in both future-proofing and in succession planning, and it's fantastic to see that recognised in a framework such as that. So if your institution already has a career portal, please do engage with that. If it does not, then please do engage with your people and organizational development teams, your HR teams. They are there for all sorts of things to support people development. So it's really important to have those conversations as you go forward. So that's thinking within your own organization and your own journey. I'd now like to talk unsurprisingly, talk about the external piece and on networks. And many of you in this call will know, I know the call is international today, which is absolutely brilliant, but certainly within the Scottish Library and Information community, we have got a huge raft of incredibly supportive organisations, really there to support your individual training and development as a librarian, as a library and information professional. Obviously, as we've already mentioned, SCURL, SALCTG, CILIP in Scotland, CILIPS, then we've got Scottish Library and Information Council, SLIC, and wider in the UK, we have SCUNL, we have Research Libraries UK, and also institutions such as ARA to support archivists, ARMA, which supports many of our research and information managers, and also UCISA, which also works with IT and library professionals. So across the UK and of course globally, we've got a huge number of networks that you're able to be part of that really helps with you developing in your personal aspirations, in future-proofing your own career. Certainly, as Sean has talked about, so many opportunities that I've had or pieces of work that I've been able to be involved with has been through participation and engaging with all of these networks. It has been absolutely invaluable. As all of you will know, and I'm sure many, and in fact, so many of you being here today will have also realized that all of these organizations really do enable learning and training and development. That has really sort of came into its own during COVID, of course, but that has really developed. Of course, given the times of constrained budgets and budget challenges that we're all working in just now, it is really, really helpful to be able to access online webinars such as today. I'll reference things like our SCURL plenaries. SCUNL have done some really helpful AI coffee mornings. There are all sorts of different webinars and sessions, and you can both listen to and actively participate in. So that's been really, really important and really helpful at all of that. And it's all free to members right across the piece that we can access that. And obviously today is such a great example of that. But it's not just about formal networks. You can also create your own. There is nothing to stop you in terms of informal networks. I'm particularly pleased, and I know one of my colleagues is on the call today, University Library Directors in Glasgow. We meet together, very informal network, not minuted or anything like that, but we come together as peers to look at our work in the city of Glasgow and to share best practice and experience. That's incredibly beneficial. There's nothing to stop you where you are, anywhere in your profession and where your skill set lies to set up those informal networks. And also, never be afraid to start your very own. And I'm going to give you a little example of that. So back in 2017, when I became Director of Libraries at the University of Glasgow, I'd only just been a Deputy Director for just 2 years. And myself and two colleagues in Research Libraries UK had really benefited from our participation in the Associate Directors Network. And whilst we were all delighted with receiving promoted new leadership posts, we were also all three of us talking about the fact that we could no longer be part of the Associate Directors Network. So that conversation developed, and at that point, we all came up with a water cooler light bulb moment and thought, well, why can't we perhaps pitch this to the RL UK board, and perhaps could we set up our own network for new directors? We were absolutely delighted. We had conversation with both the chief executive and the deputy chief executive, who were both hugely supportive. And we wrote the remit, and the board agreed to set up the new directors network, gave us quite a small budget, but nevertheless a budget, and we were able to set up. At this point, I was congratulating myself, thinking this is fantastic. I'm now part of a new peer network. I'm going to learn loads. I'll basically be able to, assimilate all of this information when, of course, always be careful what you wish for. RL UK asked myself and a colleague at the University of Cardiff to become co-conveners. At the time, I did gulp. But I'm really glad that I did. So it was a really good way to go. I learned a huge amount, both co-convening the network and being part of the network. Again, that network really evolved. It wasn't one representative per institution. It was very reflective of the landscape. Whoever was new into role joined the network. And again, it wasn't mandatory. So everyone was joining because they really wanted to. They felt they had something to contribute. So the NDN evolved very strongly throughout COVID because at that time we were all new directors. We were all facing the same challenges at exactly the same time. So that really brought the network great strength and really evolved. And it's still going today. Obviously, you're only new for a short while. So everyone stepped down after usually 2 to 3 years, everyone steps down. So the membership's always refreshed. So again, never be afraid to create or go out there, and you will always find people willing to listen. And again, all of the organisations I've referenced are member-led and will support you in that. So it's always worth thinking about that and creating your own to go forward with that. But it's not just about being part of networks, attending webinars and all of that. It's also about considering participating in working groups across all of the organisations that I've referenced. There's huge benefits to this. intensive learning, best practice, peer support, all of those things is incredibly helpful. And so I really would urge you, if you haven't already done so, to think about joining a working group. There are always calls going out. And actually, timelessly, as we speak, both SCURL and SCUNL have been completing the iteration of their strategic piece and also reviewing their working groups. So this very morning, the call has gone out right across the piece for SCUNL looking for new people to join working groups. So please do consider that. And SCURL will be also putting a call out to our members across Scotland over the coming months. So that's a plea as well to, if it feels right for you, to get engaged with that. I think all of the organisations that we spoke to are really aware of the constraints on people's time in terms of capacities, which is why a number of us review different working groups and to make sure that these working groups really are, directed and move forward. So if it's right for you, that is a really interesting thing to consider and to move on with. So please do think about that, reflecting where you are just now on your career journey and where you want to go moving forward. So a little bit then on succession planning, which is something very close to my own heart as a library director and something that we are very concentrated on. And very much so, I suppose currently, there's an awful lot of movement across the library and information community, right across the UK, different opportunities opening up. So it's really important that not just future-proofing your own career, but you're also thinking as a supervisor, as a team leader, as a manager, about future-proofing your own staff. And that's very much about your succession planning. Now, I don't need to tell anybody in this call how much our environment and our landscape has changed over the last 10 years. And if I was thinking back then to what I was thinking about in succession planning, obviously the environment is so fast changing just now that you're thinking of completely different things. And certainly at the University of Glasgow, just to use us as an example, over the last couple of years, we've been using vacancies to really re-envision and redesign roles that we currently had or have, and to make sure that they're reflecting our current operating landscape and our environment. So recently, over the last 2 to 3 years, we have then recruited for new roles, including a digital archivist. We've appointed 2 new heads of library and archive platforms and systems, and we've also just recently recruited library digital developers. So it's really important as well to always look across the team about the skills that you have, about the skills that you might wish to recruit to, because it's not just all about recruitment, it's also about developing the staff that you have. So in terms of that, I'd just like to touch briefly on mentoring and coaching and the value of that in terms of both succession planning for your teams, but also for yourself as future planning. CILIPS in Scotland already have a very successful mentoring scheme, as do SCUNL. So that's for anyone to sign up to and enter into a partnership. And back to that point about creating that enabling landscape, mentoring and coaching really does provide that to you. In terms of any leadership program that you may ever embark on, mentoring and coaching is such a key part of that. It's a very constructive and supportive conversation, but as well as that is so emphasis on the individual. This is about you as a person, about what you want to gain from both your mentoring partnership and what you want to gain from your career. And it's really important about that reflection piece, about reflecting where you are and where you want to go. I can certainly share that I've been both a mentee and a mentor. I've also mentored colleagues from different institutions, but also from different disciplines and different sectors. It's a hugely valuable piece for both mentor and mentee. You can learn so much, again, sort of that peer support piece as being a mentor, but also, listening to other people's experience about, and then, working through that in a very collaborative, but a very quiet and confidential space. So that works really well. So I would again urge you to think about that as part of your career path and to take that forward. I quite like the case that for many of the mentorship partnerships I've worked in, you can also have a pre-conversation, so you can actually talk with one another, make sure that you align with each other. It's not quite Dragon's Den, but it is quite good in terms of that you're making sure that the mentorship works for you. And that's quite an important conversation to have as well, to make sure that you're clear with that going forward. Also on succession planning is very much about your recruitment. Every institution and organisation do that differently. And it's very important to have inclusive recruitment. And in many succession planning meetings and webinars that I've attended, it's really important to make sure and work with your HR partners that your recruitment is as easy to navigate as possible. That's not always easiest in terms of what needs to be managed, but that's an important piece that you can put in. And to make sure also that that part during the recruitment that you can make it as easy as accessible as you can. Because don't forget as well that when you're recruiting to your organization, you're really the shop front for the organization of people that you want to attract to come and work in your particular institution. So apart from the recruitment piece, to make sure that there are staff on hand to talk about the role, about how that works. And that's obviously a really important part of the future proofing piece. So you can have those pre-conversations going into recruitment. Never be afraid to, I'm always much more impressed by candidates who will come and talk to you beforehand, just want to have a conversation and a dialogue about the role that they're going into. And also within that recruitment piece, the best bit of advice I can ever give, if you're thinking about changing roles, if you're within that sphere, is to always think yourself into the role, not just about what you're bringing to the role, but actually you in that role in day one, what are you going to be doing? And that's the advice I always give, to try and think about that to move forward. So to give us time for any questions that might be, or just anything you want to share, I'm just going to go through the key precepts now from the University of Glasgow Careers Portal, and just really talking about that, all about that individual journey. And these are obviously for Glasgow, but these can be shared after this afternoon. So the first step is understanding your readiness for your next step. So that's the reflective piece. Where are you now? Is this what you want to move in? Identifying your career pathway. Again, that's a really important interior dialogue to have. Are you very happy with what you're doing? So you just want to enhance what you've got? Or are you ready for a move? Do you want to move into a different sector or move further into, senior leadership and management? Then planning your career pathway about all of the steps that you need to take and the resources that you need to use. Developing yourself, back to that individual piece, that's the most important part. It's about you as an individual and how you develop with that. And then the final part in that is all of the toolkits that you can use to progress your career. So I hope that's given a few insights about different journeys and different pathways in. And I will now hand back to Sean. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Martina. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for all that advice and sharing your journey as well. It really appreciated. And yep, loads of people showing appreciation in the, what do you call it, digital clap hands thing. Yes, thanks all. So yeah, has anyone got any questions? Now, I think if you would like to raise your hand, then that's absolutely fine. I think I'll see you. Yeah, Emma, did I see an Emma with a hand up, or did that go down? May have gone down. Emma, if you do want to ask a question, please do it on the mic and just interrupt. But if not, then Nicholas, have you got a question that you'd like to ask?
I do. Sorry if it was already been covered. I had to nip away for a wee moment there, but that was really interesting. And I wondered if there was any way you could share I think it was the professional support toolkit that you've put in place, or if there's any links that you perhaps would be able to share for that, would be ideal.
Yes, I will indeed, Nicholas. So I should have said actually, and thank you for that. The University of Glasgow framework is for staff working at the University of Glasgow. But having said that, I know the team are very happy to share the work that they have done and have actually presented to SCURL already just in that. So I'll have a chat with the team, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to share that just in terms of some of the key messages that are, through the portal and any other resources they can point to. So thank you, and I'll make sure I do that.
That'd be excellent. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Brilliant. No problem at all.
Thank you, Nicholas. And Martina, if there's any links or anything you would want to share, just send them on to me and I can put them. We can put them in the post event email. Okay, is there any other questions? Whilst we're waiting to see if anyone wants to put another question in the chat or raise their hands. So, for me, if somebody's at the start of their career and perhaps nervous about networking or unsure about joining a committee, do you have any advice, for easy steps people could take at the very start, either stuff online or things that maybe from your experience, allows people to dip their toes into professional engagement without perhaps taking the step of joining a committee or a working group?
Absolutely. And again, just referring back to moving from public sector into academic library sector, As I said, I think the first few months it was very immersive, but I did a huge amount of listening. I learned a great deal. But obviously, in terms of things like webinars, you can join those and just listen. You can obviously engage in the chat, but you don't have to actively, if you don't feel ready to do that, that isn't a problem at all. So there's quite a lot with that in terms of even, coming into webinars and listening through to that. And also, but when you do join working groups, again, unless you get asked to co-convene, but hopefully that won't happen to you. But if you are becoming part of the working group, I think that's really important to have a chat beforehand with the chair and just be very clear about the role that's expected of you. But again, I think it's all of the environments that I've worked in have been incredibly welcoming. It can be nerve-wracking. I know you talked at the top about I'm referring back to the days of the school library strategy, and that advisory board was quite nerve-wracking. Just trying to chair and lead something like that. But yeah, I think you'll find that people are really willing to work with you as well. So you're a new member, and you don't always have to speak at the beginning. I think the really important part is to gain your own confidence by listening and assimilating, but never ever underestimate that anything that you bring can be really beneficial. And I know there are a few in the call who will say the same thing, that what you always want are new voices and new people joining. I know, Sean, you're looking at that just now at your trustee board, but it's things about having people who bring different perspectives and different voices as well. So it's really important to put yourself out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the value of newer professionals to committees and boards can often be really valuable, because it can give a different perspective on the challenges that sometimes can be unique to people being at that stage of that career. And yeah, I mean, I think in my experience as well, it can be quite daunting to be a part of something and then you'll feel that you have to say something and speak up. And I think, yeah, in my experience, if you get involved in something and find yourself a job within it and say, oh, I'll do that, then that can be a good way of giving yourself a task that you aren't, in the headlights of the pressure of a meeting where you have to kind of speak up or feel the pressure to. Okay, right. In the interest of time, I think I don't see any other questions. I'm sure if there is any other questions, do put them in the chat. We can pick that up. And yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and actually, just in the chat, if anyone's not accessing the chat, people have put some really great, interesting events, some opportunities to engage without obligation in the metadata and discovery group, Scotland. So do have a look at that, and please do engage with the people offering that, or have a look at the links, and that's a great chance to gain some additional CPD or networking. Okay, now we have 4 career journeys to move on to. So I'll just say thank you, Martina. Really appreciate that. And we'll get started with the career journeys just so people have enough time to share their journey as fully as possible. And I know with the 4 people that we have doing this, 15 minutes would be nowhere near enough to capture all the wonderful things you've done in your various roles, but hopefully you can give it a go. So I will not give people full introductions, because I think that's probably going to steal their thunder considering the nature of the topic. So I will just welcome along the first contributor, who is Graham Hawley from the National Library of Scotland. Graham, I think you are on the call. Yes, I can see you definitely are. So Graham, please just take over and share your screen if you are doing so, or otherwise just speak. But thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm not sharing a screen, but what I am doing is posting 3 photographs into the chat channel, because when I've just done that, these are me. This is me at work, and the first one is me as Miffy, and the second one is me at on stage at the Highland Hooley, the Malig Book Festival, and the third picture won't paste. Unfortunately, it's maybe too large a file size, but it's me in a district of Paisley, Foxbar, and it won't paste. And that's also me. And same guy, different opportunities. That's earlier in my career when I'm dressed as Miffy, because a call went out. Was anybody willing to dress up as Miffy for the launch of an exhibition? And the only criteria was you had to be 5'7" or below. So I just made it, and I said yes. And I have a tendency to say yes. and not everybody necessarily wants to do that. And some of what Martina was saying chimed with me a lot. I enjoy speaking. I feel, I feel fortunate that, I'm confident to speak in public meetings and things. But I'm aware that lots of people aren't. Some of my favourite people, and indeed my husband, is a very private person and introverted, and I would like to just therefore make a point and say that just because you're extroverted doesn't mean that you don't appreciate introverted people. And I enjoy very much the time I spend with introverted people. And what I've found is that CILIPS, the CILIPS East branch and other committees that I've been on, has a range of people. And I think it's worth bearing in mind actually that there's a huge amount of welcome across the board from the library community for all different types of personality. But I do tend to say yes, and then afterwards I wonder about how I will implement it. I feel like I'm possibly atypical in the career progression thing, because I can't say I've had a career development plan. I started at the National Library of Scotland in 2002 as a cataloguer, and I found it an extremely rich and immersive experience. And what I did was I paid attention to anything and everything that people told me. And it was a good match. I was a good fit because I was interested in the minutiae and all manner of storytelling, institutional storytelling. And I lapped it up and I just enjoyed it very much. And then 3 years later, there was a post came up, which was Corporate Information Officer. Which was very dry. It was to do with freedom of information and data protection. But the thing it came with was looking after the library's corporate archive. And I thought, and so nobody liked that job. Nobody particularly wanted to apply for this very compliance-based job. But I thought, yeah, but you get to faff around with the library's corporate archive. You get to kind of have your own mini library within a library. What's not to like? And I took that job. And it was based within the Human Resources Department, which also meant I got a lot of exposure to things, other types of compliance and careers development people, colleagues like Andrew McDougall, who's our learning and development manager. So it took me out of collections and threw me into this corporate thing over here. But I was able to still practice library skills and archive skills by looking after the library's corporate archive, and got to know even more about the extremely bizarre civil service history of the National Library of Scotland. And then after 7 years of that, another job came up, and it was as a consequence of a restructure that had left a lot of people feeling quite bruised. And this was over in the collections department, and it was a brand new team called the General Collections team, and it was responsible for the 20th and 21st century collections. And I thought, well, there'll be a huge queue of people who wants to do this. It's the best job I've ever heard of. And it was advertised internally, and nobody applied. And so they advertised it externally. I was like, what the hell? This is clearly the greatest job that's ever come up for sale. So I applied as an external candidate and sat the interview and got it. And what I realized was the people who I thought might apply for that hadn't applied for it because they didn't want to be a manager, and they didn't want to be picking up the pieces after a restructure that had been fairly challenging for people. And some people thought I was mad, actually. They said, they're all pissed off, all of those people. They're all furious. And I thought, that's fine, because they're allowed to be. It's human beings. And that's fine if they're upset. And they described themselves as the leftovers. Some of them, they said they were the dregs that nobody else wanted. And I said that you can make some good dishes with leftovers. And that's what we did. And we built a really different team of curators who And then we started to realize all of the benefits. We weren't burdened by the past at all. We had a nice blank sheet. We didn't have to worry about what our predecessors might think of us, because there weren't any. And some of those things, therefore, that were the kind of things that could have put people off. The lack of a roadmap, the lack of anything to kind of reference, were all of the things that appealed to me. Because I thought, this is great. Wonder what we can do with this. And I think this is because of a sort of a fundamental thing, really, about high levels of trust particularly in people. And that can mean that can be abused sometimes, and therefore you feel quite let down. But by and large, I've not had that experience at all. And instead, it's mainly come to pass that that having a sort of a faith in people is very rewarding. And I suppose the area that I should brush up on more is my enthusiasm and excitement for processes. But I find I think there are poor substitutes, processes, for relationships. So most of what I've done in my career has been about relationships. And there was a point at which it became very important, because right when I took this job in 2013, the library had to clear an entire floor of books so they could do some urgent sprinkler repair works. And this was our former lending collection, which we didn't use anymore. There was 100,000 books, 100,000 duplicates that other libraries had sent to us. And the urgency was such that the only I'm head of published collections. They've put me in charge of the Gutenberg Bible now, like lunatics. So everything that's all of the library's published collections, including electronic publications. And so they needed to clear this stock, and what they said was that the quickest and most economical way was to pulp 100,000 books. And I said, well, we can't possibly do that. It's the National Library of Scotland. There's a reputational risk, and apart from anything else, when will we ever have the opportunity to do creative things with 100,000 books ever again? What are you thinking about? And so they granted this sort of stay of execution for these books, and they gave me 11 weeks, and I had absolutely no plan at all as to how to do it, none whatsoever. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done now? And somebody told me after 2 weeks of not seeing any movement, your reputation is on the line, Graham, they said. It was really frightening. I was quite frightened. And then I just asked for help. I put out a call to a few people that I knew quite well, that I'd known for about, I don't know, 15 years at that point. And I said, I'm going to stay behind every night and box up these books, and take them to charitable causes. Do you want to join in? And word got around, and a fifth of the library staff joined in. A fifth, 60 people for the next 9 weeks came along between 5 and 7 every night, and between 2 and 4 on a Saturday. And we got rid of 92,000 of the 100,000 books to charitable causes, Glasgow School of Art, which had just burnt down, all sorts of stuff. And the person who was most annoyed with me was the head of estates. I was furious that I had got in the way. And the most lovely thing of all was one night when actually nobody else was there. He came along, and he was boxing up, helping box up these things with me. And it was profoundly moving, really, because he had been very angry, actually. But what he also hadn't realized was what the power of people was, and had completely underestimated how responsive people would be when you simply said, would you be willing to help with this task? Now, of course, I'm not suggesting that you can solve every problem that you face with voluntary work, but this was a time when the spiritual, the emotional, was more important than the statistical and the financial. And I think having that sense is what can make the difference sometimes, because although our collections are about books and texts and literature and things like that. If you work in a medical library, your collections are about hope, and they're about survival, and they're about bereavement and loss. And if you work in a children's book library, your collections are about wonderment. And I've tried, therefore, to do most of my work in the emotional realm, rather than literary or collections. So that's a bit about, I suppose, my career journey. And then after, I don't know, 10 years in that role, we did a merger, and somebody, the head of Rare Books, got a new job at the British Library. And they merged the two teams, and that wasn't smooth. That wasn't without people feeling like, did I know enough about the Rare Books collections? And I knew some, but I didn't know everything there was to know. And to an extent, I don't need to, because I've got some incredible curators who do know in the team. But I know different things. I know other things, and I hope I can add value to what they do know. But I took it seriously when people did say, well, what do you possibly know about Rare Books? I've read an enormous amount over the last year. Discovered I have a preference for Venetian fonts over German fonts, and are quite comfortable with that. And yeah, a whole range of things. So yeah, it's important to me that I know the product. And sometimes the product is books and it's fonts and things, and sometimes the product is, how do people feel about the institution that they work in? And if I don't know, then I go to lengths to find out. Don't know. I mean, I could say things about yeah, job applications. Yeah, you've no idea what you're up against. If advertise a job, you need to understand that you could be one of 80 applications that comes in, and realistically, I'm going to shortlist for 6 people to interview. So 74 people never even get to meet. It's brutal. It's really, really cruel. I don't like it. I wish it was different, but at the same time, that's how it works. And so it's about seeing if somebody has a fit for the role. So for curatorial posts, we often get people who are very, very academic, and they talk at great lengths about their PhD. And I suppose the impression it leaves you with is, you are in already the best job. You love what you do. It's not a bad thing if you don't get this, because you clearly love what you currently do. And what you would have to do in this role might be things that you perhaps wouldn't love as much. And what you're looking for instead, I think, is to get a sense that somebody does love the job and is able to explain why they do. And that is what makes a difference. And it tends to be those applications which are born out of having done something. And I think things which Martina was referring to is, sometimes you might need to build those things yourself. And it doesn't have to be a big project at all. It could be something you spent 50 quid on, or £500 that you got a grant from your local department, but something that actually happened, that you can say, I love doing this, really travels well in a job application. In fact, it's probably better if it's not a £10,000 or £100,000 project, because then you get all sorts of other stuff that you have to explain. Something small, perfectly formed, that's fantastic. That's my advice.
Thank you, Graham. Brilliant advice, and I love processes. Pure substitute for relationships is a lovely quote, and all really, really sage advice. So thank you so much for sharing your journey, and that was really appreciated. Wonderful to hear all that.
Sean, you've frozen, I think. I think you might have frozen.
Have I frozen?
You have on my screen. Oh, right. Okay. It's me that's frozen. Right.
Okay.
Sorry, Sean.
I may have frozen. If I have frozen for anyone, then I apologize. As long as you can hopefully hear me, we'll carry on. But thank you, Graham, once again. And please, let's show our appreciation for Graham. If anyone has any questions, we'll probably kind of move through these career journeys, and maybe if there's time, we'll do a few questions. But if anyone's got a question, put it in the chat. And if Graham, I don't know how long you can stay for, but for the time you can stay, then please, if you see any questions, do answer them. But no worries if you have to head off at any point soon. But thanks again. Okay, so next up we have Gary Steele, who is Head of Library Services at Glasgow Caledonian University. Gary, are you here and are you sharing screen at all, or are you just speaking?
No, I'm here, Sean, and yeah, I'm going to share my screen. So if there's any problems, you'll have to shout because I won't be able to see. I've only got one monitor today.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll give you a shout if there's any problems. But yeah, go ahead. Thank you. And just take it away when you're ready.
Okay, get that out of the way. Okay, well, thanks very much. So I wanted just to start this actually with one point. So I very much sit in the middle demographic. I understand I'm white, I'm male. And I wanted to acknowledge that when you sit within privilege, sometimes it's not always obvious, but it's certainly beyond the scope of a 15-minute conversation for me to address, but I did want to acknowledge that in terms of career progressions. And when I was asked about this, I reflected on my career journey. So I've tried to just think of some actions that I took in my career which still allowed me to progress within that, because in that privilege in itself isn't the only thing that allows you to progress through your career. So I'm going to go back, and I've got 3 countries to work through. So starting in Dublin, so that one on the right is first public library I worked in Tala in South Dublin, and that was my first introduction to libraries. But I hadn't actually a library career in mind. I went off to actually study computing originally. I did a degree in that, but back in 1999, I was learning languages like COBOL. It was pre-smartphones, so it was a very different world, but it was a good grounding in theory of computing. And then I did what I actually wanted to do, which is study English. So I went to Maynooth University in Kildare in Ireland and studied English, and whilst was there found anthropology, which was an intriguing subject to me. And one of the really strong points that stuck with me forever throughout my career in anthropology is anthropology talks about making the familiar strange and the strange familiar. And it talks a lot about the idea that, you know, everything is contingent and based in context. And it's a very good way to approach change, because anything that we think of as like set in stone as to how we do things, well, actually, it's just a story we've told ourselves, and that story can be changed. And then after that, I thought I probably should start a career. So I thought about moving into librarianship. So I applied for a role in Trinity College, Dublin, and I actually went for 2 jobs there. And this is one of the things about showing my workings. One of the points about show that you want to work in a particular place, and show that you're interested in working at. And that's something that I would always say for any job interviews. One thing I always say is for internal candidates, never assume the people that you're talking to, even though you know what you're talking about, because we have to write down everything you say. So therefore we can't work on any assumptions. And the other is also definitely in interviews is people may be very qualified, but they don't come across as wanting to work in the particular place that they're interviewing for. So example, in Trinity College Dublin, I went for 2 posts. So one post was for graduate trainee and the other was for shelving assistant out in their offsite store in Santry near the airport. It was the same panel on both, and the interviews were one day after the other. So when I came for the second interview, the same panel said, "You clearly want to work in this institution." And as it happened, I actually, and again, a lot of my career is about a bit of chance and how things changed. And as it happens, I didn't actually get the graduate trainee post at first. I got the shelving assistant, which meant I got to work in this lovely long, I keep on calling it the Long Hall. The Long Hall is a really nice pub in Dublin. It's actually called the Long Room. So that I got to work there, and I got to go up the staircase and fetch the books that are actually you see here on display. And then as I worked through that, then a position in the graduate training came up, and I was able to transition into that. So next thing I think is actually having to move a bit, because sometimes if you want to progress in your career, you do have to move either professionally or physically. So I physically moved to London. I did my postgraduate studies in MA librarianship in UCL, and I took 2 years to do that because at the end of my first year in 2007, I actually got my job in the Caird Library Archive Museum, National Maritime Museum. So I was able to I extended the period that I spent writing up my thesis. And a lot of that was learning. So, and one of the things about showing your learning. So in order to be able to secure that post in the role, my graduate my thesis for my MA was about Library Congress subject headings, but it had a computing element to it. So I went and enrolled in City College in London to learn how to do JavaScript, so that I could then write the script to actually do my thesis. And the other thing that was really interesting with the Caird Library was that it was a library and archive, so I was able to have a foot in both camps. And my little tidbit of interest from that archive is that it held the so when a captain is appointed a captain, they get what's called a master certificate. We had the copy of the original master certificates, and Captain Smith of the Titanic actually failed his navigation test first time around, which is maybe telling in and of itself. And then a year after, whilst I was working in the Caird Library, I was learning as much as I could and taking in as much as I could. I managed to have the opportunity to start getting some systems training and some training on CIRCE Dynex system as it was at the time. And then I was able to use that to move on to my next post, which was the Anthropology Library in the British Museum. That was the Electronic Services and Systems Librarian, but it was a perfect combination of having done a degree in anthropology, having a degree in, having done certificate in computing, and then a librarianship degree as well, and actually understanding how to run the system that was brought in there to work on, which is CIRCE Dynex. But at the time, it was only available internally, so I led a project to migrate to the new version of CIRCE Dynex and actually make the catalogue available to the public for the first time. And again, this is the round reading room in the British Museum, which at the time when I was working there was actually an exhibition space, but we literally got to go behind the scenes because the bookshelves you see up there on this second level, we would still go and get books occasionally from that as well. So that was quite an interesting bit of place to move around. So again, what I said about being prepared to move, so moving both physically but also into profession. So I had obviously at this point worked primarily in museum background, but I wanted to be able to move into an area where it was a bit more dynamic, let's put it that way, and there's a bit more development, because museums can be quite, they don't have as much drive for change. So I decided to move into start to look for opportunities to move into academia, and a job up in Glasgow came up in the very famous Saltire Centre, which in and of itself was extremely famous. At the time, to be honest, I didn't know much about it. I didn't really know much about UK HE either, so it was a new sector to me. There was a lot of learning to be done in that. Again, back to that point about preparing for where I wanted to move to. So I did read up about the Saltire Centre. I learned about it. I understood that its kind of founding principles was on a book called The Social Life of Information. So I read that book. So I read as much as I could to be able to be prepared to go and demonstrate this is where I wanted to come and this is where I wanted to work and why I did want to work there. So I successfully became library systems manager there at first. And a lot of that was about problem solving, and it's one of the points I think is very useful in advancing your careers, to be seen not only to be able to solve problems, which is quite fun and enjoyable, but also to be seen to be a problem solver. So as you progress your career, a lot of what you'll be dealing with are problems, and being able to actually actively engage in those problems and think about how can we solve these, it will be to your benefit. And then from that, I was able to move into a role as a senior librarian for collections and discovery. So that was the creation of two teams that had previously been in the library. And I interviewed and was appointed to that role. And that was my first proper experience in management. So I hadn't really managed anyone prior to that. I had done some in my previous role, because the team I was in, I'd been able to demonstrate an engagement in management, because we were a small team and we had at the time we had difficulties in processing our work and being able to keep on top of things. So I introduced a Kanban board that we use as a physical and visual way of tracking our jobs and being able to actually bring some semblance of order to what we were working through. And then when I was appointed to the Senior Librarian of Collections Discovery, we had to go through the process of actually combining two teams that had been quite disparate, agreeing what it is we were actually doing, and then quite quickly we went into a full systems migration as well. And all of that change, and also that period also obviously covers the biggest period of change in anyone's life, which was indeed the pandemic. And it's one of the points I kind of reflect on quite a lot about people if they feel uncomfortable with change. But anybody who's still working in the libraries now and was working in libraries 2020 or just before, you've probably been through the biggest change you're ever going to be through in your entire life. And if you can do that, you can do any other change that you're going to affect. Because the global pandemic that no one has in our lifetime has ever experienced, and touchwood will never experience again. So if you can live through that, you can definitely live through any other change that's going to come up. But one of the things about engaging with that change and positively working with it. So when we were doing our systems migration, we were getting a bit fixated on saying, well, this is what the old system did. So that was as is. And then when we went to 2B, it was just, well, we'll just get the new systems to do those same things. So we introduced a kind of an extra step where we said, which we call the needs analysis. And what it did was it brought up the view of what the as is. It brought it up to a higher level. So rather than saying person X sends invoice Y to person Z, it actually says, we just said, well, actually what has to happen there is an invoice needs to be sent. So by extracting it away from the ownership that people had around that particular process up to a higher level, that allowed us then to use our new system to drive improvements and actually efficiencies as well. And it also then started to lead into kind of where the next thing I was going to point about, which is around leadership and my engagement during that period in really learning how to be a leader to allow me to move on to what my current role. So I have been through different in-house leadership training, and I haven't had formal leadership training, and I didn't adopt a specific style, but looking at kind of in preparation for my head of library services role, I started to look at it in more detail and feel that I map much more so onto compassionate leadership. So it's about listening, understanding, trust, and giving people agency and information, and a helping and coaching perspective. And I'm ensuring that people are fully informed of the picture from top to bottom. So I'm very keen on when we do personal appraisals of a year, that individuals understand how the work they do relates all the way up to our strategic goal. And so I was in managing the team that were responsible for ref processing. So understanding that ref records that you're record that you're processing, how that actually applies all the way up to the strategic goals of the university, and trying to bring that together. And the two bits of leadership training that really I think stood me in best stead were, one was it was called grit training, which was about resilience, and there's definite uncomfortableness as you go up through the career progression, and you have to be able to step into that uncomfortableness. And one thing the way I did that, two ways I pushed myself into uncomfortable areas, or one, I was able to put myself forward to sit on disciplinary panels within the institution. They are not pleasant, and they will never be pleasant. They are people in difficult circumstances, but it is a reality of management. So therefore I put myself forward to engage in those before they actually came to me in a management role. And then another one, as Martina touched upon, is the wider group. So I've had involvement in SHEDL and SCURL. I've led chaired groups in working with JISC and APUC as well. So putting myself forward into those groups. And I'll be blatantly honest, when I first moved into the senior librarian role, my first engagement was with the SHEDL's journal group. I had absolutely no idea whatsoever what I was doing, and they're all very welcoming and will support you. So if there's any qualms or queries about it, don't worry, just go for it, and you'll be fine. And then the other area that I find particularly useful in leadership, because it's quite reflective, is something called active learning set or action learning sets, which is where it's almost like a therapy session. It feels rather like, and it's a group of similar peers who discuss particular issues or areas that you're dealing with, and then actually help each other through those problems. There is a kind of formal set to how they work, but I find them personally very, very useful, and it helps me reflect on my own leadership skill approach, and also learn from others. So I'd very much recommend them. So kind of in summary, these are my kind of conclusions in terms of the points of what I think was of use of any. So when your interviews, always tell us everything. We need to write it down. Interview processes are extremely rigid and formal, and if you don't say it out loud, we can't write it down. And show your interest, which is show you want to work where you're going to work. Be open to moving, and that's physically or professionally, because that is the reality. Sometimes if you want to move up within it, you may have to physically move where you are. And And then show your learning, so always be interested in learning and reach beyond your role. And that's another area is that it's difficult to get promoted if you stay within your rigid definition of what your role is. You need to be showing that you can work beyond that definition. Be a problem solver. Problem solving is fun, but also show that you want to solve problems. And then, engage positively with change and lead it. So we're always going to change. So it's better to change your attitude towards change. It's probably by putting it, and then lean into and learn about leadership. And there are opportunities always, even if you're not a direct people manager, to engage in areas of leadership. And that's it for me. So I'll just stop sharing now.
Thank you, Gary. That was fantastic. Thank you for taking us on that journey. And yeah, absolutely, great points around being flexible and adapting to circumstance and being willing to do that. And I think, I think one of the messages of today is, it's very difficult to plan a career. You just have to, you follow your instincts sometimes and take opportunities when they come. So thank you for sharing that. We've got a couple of minutes. If anyone, I think Graham might probably be heading off just now if he hasn't already, but if anyone's got any questions for Gary, then please do put your hand up or put them in the chat if anybody's got anything personally they would like to ask. Do we have a bit of time? Yeah, I can't see any hands up, but I can see people saying it. Great advice. Thank you very much. Absolutely agree. That was fantastic. Thank you, Guy. If anyone's got any questions, do put them in the chat, and hopefully if you're staying around, Guy, you can pick them up. But other than that, thanks again. We are now going to take a short break. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I think we'll get started again so we can hear some more of our wonderful career journeys. So I hope you all had a nice break. Okay, we'll move straight on into the next talk. So we are very fortunate to be joined by Sarah Louise MacDonald, who is an academic support librarian at the University of Edinburgh. Sarah Louise, you are sharing screen, I think, so please just go ahead and share screen and just start talking whenever you're comfortable to do so. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you so much. Okay, hopefully everyone can see this now. If you can't, please let me know. Similar to Gary, because I'm sharing my screen, I won't be able to see any hands go up or questions in the chat, but I hopefully won't take the whole time, and therefore we'll have a bit of time to close down at the end and answer questions. So I have named my presentation Every Day is a Winding Road after the Sheryl Crow song, because frankly we all need a little more Sheryl Crow in our lives. Also, I may have been having a bit of a wild week last week, and so I seem to have just gone a bit off-piste while writing this presentation, so I hope you'll forgive me, but here we are. So all my slides are named after lyrics. Let's jump in, let's go. This is what I'll be talking about here today. So a little bit about me, my career path, some achievements, some obstacles, morale, keeping on going, aspirations, and questions at the end, hopefully, if we have time for all those things. This is me. I am on your screen, hopefully. But yes, I am not, in fact, a vending machine repairman. But you could say all these things about me. I am a librarian, a feminist. I work with EDI. I am LGBTQIA+. I'm a wife. I'm a mum. I'm a crafter. I'm a reader. I'm a hula hooper. And I'm an academic support librarian, quite far down the list, but it is one of the things about me that you might want to know. I have a bunch of letters I could put after my name because I seem to be addicted to collecting them. So my undergraduate degree was in English and Scottish literature. I did go to library school, Strathclyde, and have my qualification from there. I got my PG Cap, which is a teaching qualification during the pandemic, in fact, because obviously I couldn't do nothing, incapable of sitting still, some might say. I am chartered with CILIP. I am also a mentor with CILIP for professional registration. I have in the past been a CILIPS mentor as well, but there are lots of different aspects to me. I do lots of things, and I don't think my identity is made up of any one of them, and I particularly don't think my identity is only being an academic support librarian. I'm the sum of many parts, as we all are. And I think each of these different aspects are useful in your career, and you can make them work for you. So It's also worth mentioning, as Gary did before me, that I have a lot of privilege in my life. I have been given a lot of advantages just by pure luck of being who and where I am in the world. I'm white, I'm cis, I'm straight passing, English speaking, Scottish, middle class. I have come from a family which has higher education in our backgrounds, so none of these things are things that have it doesn't negate the work I've put into my career, but it's worth mentioning that I have been given advantages that other people have not. So if your background doesn't look the same as mine, you may not be in the same position as I am to take advantage of opportunities as they come up. This is a talk about my career path, so I should probably tell you about the various jobs I've had. This is a not very exciting to look at, but it is a list of jobs I've had. I started as a library assistant. That was my first foray into libraries in South Lanarkshire Council in Rutherglen, actually. And it was there that I realised if I wanted to progress in libraries, then I might have to go and get a qualification. At the time, it didn't seem like there were many opportunities for me personally if I didn't go and get my library qualification. And so that's what I did. I'd left my undergraduate degree. I really had no idea what I wanted to do, but I had landed this job and I thought, why not? Why not keep going this way? It seems good. I like books. We all like books. So off I went to get my library qualification, and I realised there was so much more to libraries than just public libraries. My first job out of library school was for in business information, working with Scottish Enterprise. And at this point, I should mention, we should all look at this list of jobs and look at how many different ways there are to say a library worker. There's so many different ways. Resource centre coordinators, librarian, yes, but also assistants, officers. You could be one of many things, and you could be a library person essentially. I decided that I really wanted to work in school libraries because although I consider myself an introvert, I really like helping people. I really like working with young people, and I thought that would be the best place for me. But fresh out of library school, I was taking any job I could get that was vaguely information related. So there I was at Business Gateway and Scottish Enterprise. I applied for so many library jobs. I applied for so many school library jobs. And one of the things that they don't really talk to you about early on in your career is how many rejections you're going to have to suffer through to get to where you want to go. There's a lot of rejection. And so I wasn't getting the school library jobs. I didn't have experience in school libraries, and a lot of jobs, you really have to have done the job, it seems sometimes, before you can get the job. And so I thought I'll do anything tangentially related. So I applied for college jobs. So I did eventually, took a while, but I eventually got a job in Fife College. It was formerly Carnegie College in Dunfermline. It was just merging to become Fife College. And it was there, I think, I actually learned how to be a librarian. Not because necessarily of my qualification, but because of the people around me. They taught me my job. Some of the library assistants there really showed me what it was to be a library professional. And I will never not be grateful for that. I was there for only a few months before a senior post came up. Library and Digital Services Coordinator was essentially our team lead. It was a mat leave cover, so I applied for that and I got it. And I performed that post for a year, and I thought this is closer to school libraries, because I was still working with students and learners. I was in the education sector, that's what I wanted. And then a variety of secondment cover, maternity cover, part-time posts came up in the City of Edinburgh Council, and that's where I wanted to be, was in schools, and I got there. I was delighted. But what I found when I was there is there's a lot of great things about working in schools, but do you know what's rubbish is the precarity, the uncertainty of having fixed term contracts. And ultimately, although I persevered for years, particularly in the City of Edinburgh Council, I wasn't able to sustain a job there because all that was available were fixed term, part-time, and at the time that I was there was restructures going on. Eventually, I just screwed up my courage and applied for some other jobs. I had no idea that I would end up working in law libraries, which is what happened next. I saw a job. I had known a few people from library school. I had known a few contacts through friends of friends in libraries that worked in this area, and I thought I'll just ask them how it is. Is it good? shall I go? Shall I try? And I did, and had a great time. Actually, I worked in the Sheriff Courts. There wasn't a Sheriff Court librarian before me. This was a brand new service they were setting up for the Sheriff Courts, replicating what was going on in the Supreme Courts. I was part of the wider Supreme Courts team. We were a small team at the time. It's slightly larger now, and I had a great time. I had a great time. I had a stressful time. I was in charge of all the Sheriff Courts libraries in Scotland. There's about 37 of them. Some of them are just a small room of books, a cupboard of books, and some of them are distinct libraries. They were all managed differently. There was no central service, centralised catalogue or anything like that. And a lot of the job was negotiating with people and trying to bring them all together to make a consistent service across the board. It was a huge job, and by the time I left, I was only there for 2 years really, and by the time I left, the job wasn't done. I passed it on to another colleague who I've been delighted to work with on several projects. We recruited him for the post. He actually applied for a more junior post, and we recruited him to come for my post when I left, and I was so happy that he got it. Because I knew the job would be in safe hands. And I still feel very affectionately towards the Scottish Courts libraries. But I was lucky enough to then come into this job that I have now as an academic support librarian. And this is all the benefits, I think, of being, all the things I loved about being a school librarian. So working with learners, helping people find resources, and doing the good work of critical information instruction, while also being in a more secure position than I was before, working in a large institution, which gives me plenty of opportunities. And there's enough leeway in my job that I can find lots of interesting things about it. So I guess my point by going through all those jobs is that you really can go in a very wiggly route to get to where you want to go. And my next slide just goes to show, just to summarize that a little bit. I worked in a bunch of different sectors, and I thought I was going to land somewhere in the middle, and actually opportunities came up and I just kept going and kept going. So you don't necessarily have to have the big plan. It's great if you do. Have something to work towards, but if you don't, that's okay too. Sometimes opportunities present themselves and you can just take them on and go for it. And sometimes you have to take a sidestep. You have to go around the houses a little bit to find the right route for the good fit for you. And sometimes opportunities you don't think will be a good fit for you, like me in law libraries, and actually they are great. They can give you so many brilliant things. So yeah, if you think you don't know where you're going, if you think that you'll never get there, there are plenty of ways to get there. I have had lots of highlights along the way. So a lot of these things involved my colleagues, I would say also. Something I haven't written down a lot in this presentation is just how important other people are. Whether it's people giving you opportunities, people working with you and liking it and coming back to find you again, people trusting you enough to take a chance on something. So when I was running my lunchtime clubs in school to build a place and a community for the young people that I worked with, I had to do that off the back of some trust with some teachers and colleagues that I'd worked with. They were happy to encourage the children to come along and find base and community in the library. Doing chartership was quite a wild ride for me, but being a mentor has been so rewarding in that respect. It's been something that I never thought would be my cup of tea, but actually it's been great talking to people and helping them on their journey. It all kind of folds into all the things I want from my career, I have been involved in recruitment for other people, and that taught me a lot, especially about how to do good applications and how to get past sifting processes. It's hard work, but if you think about it from a recruiter's point of view, what would you like to see in an application? It definitely clarifies the process a lot, I would say. I fell into convenership of SLLG, which was the Scottish Law Librarians Group. Certainly didn't think that would be something I would be doing, but there we are. And you just, most of these things are taking the opportunities as they present themselves. Showing an interest, as those have said before me, showing an interest, being up for it, saying yes, giving it a go, even if you don't think it's quite right for you. Sometimes it can give you great transferable skills. Of course, I have got Slippy 2022 on here, which is an award that I was given by CILIPS. Scottish Library and Information Professional of the Year in 2022. Thanks, Sean. And I received that award at the conference that year, and I was blown away by it, honestly. It wasn't something I felt very comfortable with, because I thought, oh, a lot of the work I do is just doing my job. But actually, it's nice to be recognised. It's lovely to be recognised for the work you do and for being a kind and enthusiastic and willing professional. That can really help you in your career, even if that's not why you did it in the first place. But then again, there are things here that I've listed that go back to my original points. So requests for collaboration, people working with me and wanting to work with me. The LEAPS transition course is me working with schools again. That's a course that runs with 6th year pupils from across the country, preparing them for university. They do a year-long course where they do bits in and out of university, and it shows them, my involvement is helping them work with academic resources and understanding what they are and how to use them properly. So it's still, information literacy instruction, and I still get to flex my teaching muscles with young people, and it's just great to be a part of. So there's loads of different things that I've enjoyed in my career to date, and hopefully lots more to come. But there are also some terrible things. So most of them involves my faults, usually, being embarrassed, interview fails where I have been called out by an interviewer who said, your heart is not in this, because I was doing my maybe 14th interview, and I knew I wasn't going to get it. And but I went along anyway because I thought better to go. But then I also thought, well, am I wasting everyone's time in here? So I was giving them the same answers I'd given before, knowing it wasn't going to get me anywhere. And the recruiter phoned me up afterwards and said, you're not acting like you want this job. You didn't do yourself a service there, is what he said, which has obviously stuck with me all these years later. So that's rubbish, to be told, honestly. But it did make me buck up my ideas. I went and had a break from doing interviews, from doing applications for a while, because I needed a break. My morale was super low. There was another occasion where I was completely unprepared for an interview because I had thought that this was just a conversation with myself. It was between temporary jobs in our organisation, and I was coming to the end of one contract, and I was sort of applying for another contract in the same organisation, and I thought it was going to be a casual chat, and it was not. It was a proper interview with all the standard questions and competencies, and I really should have prepared better for it, but I just thought I was going to walk into it. So interesting that at that point I was so confident that I thought that would just be the right way to go about it. So you learn, you live and learn. Author events. I discovered that I don't like doing author events. It's not for me. And I think it's really okay to say there's things in your career that you're not good at. They make me anxious. And so whenever I will do them, just like I will do presentations and I will do teaching and all these things, stand up in front of people and talk for a while. But I've learned which things I do and don't enjoy, and author events is not one of them. There are too many uncertainties. I don't enjoy instability and uncertainty. I certainly don't enjoy fixed term contracts. And sometimes there are things out with your control in your career, and you have to just roll with the punches and look for the next opportunity, really. And that's not a great piece of advice, but it is just the way of the world, unfortunately. But some good pieces of advice, or at least pieces of advice that have stood me in good stead so far, is that morale is important. So if you're feeling burnt out, if you're feeling like you can't do another application, you can't do another interview, if you feel like you're not putting yourself forward to your best effect, stop for a while. Give yourself a break. You're not supposed to be relentlessly grinding away at this machine. If you're looking for career advancement and there are no opportunities in front of you, it's okay to stop and take a break for a little while. What sounds like a direct contradiction of that is to say apply anyway. But that's not in a case of are you burnt out? That's more a case of, do you think you could do the job? If you think you could do the job but you're not sure that you could convince someone of that, apply anyway, is my advice, because you can advocate for yourself and you do have transferable skills and you do have things to offer. Remember that there are plenty of people who are applying for these jobs who do not have the things and they're applying anyway. So you, who does have the things, you can do it. I should also say build in small joys. So in any job, there are small things that will make you happy. Even if it's coffee break with your colleagues that you really enjoy, do that. If it's a project that you really want to be involved in, do that. Make that your focus. Make that the thing that brings you joy in your work, and the rest will follow, I think. And it all counts. So I am part-time. I have had plenty of temporary jobs. I have been on mat leave. I have covered for secondments. And for a while, I thought those things were going to hold me back, but they did not. They're all things that I was able to progress myself. I was able to take up opportunities. I was able to do great things while in all of those positions. So don't write yourself off, even if you're just part-time. In terms of where I'm going from here, I'm hoping to develop in my current role. I'm not really looking for other things just now because this is a good fit for me at the moment. But I have flexibility in my role. I'm very fortunate to have enough seniority to have a bit of flexibility. I'm not micromanaged, so I'm able to look at different things and work within my role to do those. And I've learned that contentment is not the enemy. It's okay not to be constantly reaching for the next thing. If you find a place that is a good fit for you, then you can stay there. That's okay. I don't know where I'm going next, but I know that I'm okay where I am at the moment, and I'm proud of how I got there. So, with only 1 minute to go in my time slot, I will take any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Sarah Louise. That was fantastic. Brilliant advice, and great to hear the failures and the successes and all of that, and such a varied career. So it was fantastic to hear from you. We've got a question. Actually, we've got a couple of questions. Now, Joy, did you have your hand up, or did that go down? I think maybe it's gone down. But Susie, you've got your hand up, so I'll come to you first.
Thanks, Sarah Louise. It's just to affirm one thing you're saying. I did a maternity leave from a library assistant role. And because I'd got that extra 9 months experience, when I went for a more substantive post, they actually put me up several points on the scale.
Amazing.
It was like a new professional post. So just say to anyone else who's out there, definitely take those opportunities, because I wouldn't have said, oh, I've got more experience than these people, I'd like more money. I'd never dream of it, even now, do that. But they did that because I'd got the extra experience. So just to add on to your thing about take those opportunities when they arrive.
Amazing. Well done, you.
Thank you. Yep, thank you for sharing, Susie. And yeah, so I'm just having a look down for any other questions. I think just people saying thank you. Yeah, thank you for being so honest and such a great overview. And I love what you said about just doing your job, and you feel that's perhaps not worthy of notification, but actually, so many of us and many people on this call today will be doing really fantastic things in their job, and sometimes it can feel like a bit of a thankless task when there's budget pressures and lots of other things going on in libraries. But I think it's easy to forget the difference that we're making to or you're making to students and other people's lives as you go on. So thank you so much, Sarah Louise. In the interest of time, we will move on to our final career journey just before I do a final piece just before we finish up. So we're now going to welcome Dominique Walker, who is Publishing Officer at the Scottish Universities Press. Dominique, I can see you've shared screen. Thank you very much, and please just take it away whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Yeah, will do. Thanks, Sean. And thanks to CILIPS for inviting me along to speak at the event. So I still feel like I am very, very mid-career, but I hope that my journey into the world of library publishing and setting up a collaborative open access universities press will be interesting, at least. And I think also show how library roles are changing, and they've changed a lot over the last few years. They're diversifying into kind of different areas that require different sets of skills. So just starting out, I graduated from the University of Glasgow in 2008 with a degree in English Literature and Spanish. I then went off travelling around South America for a year. And when I came back from that, I started to apply for various different library assistant roles. And to be honest, I was applying for roles in any library sector, but I wasn't having much luck in getting interviews. So I saw a role pop up for an evening stock assistant post at Glasgow University Library. So I applied for that and was successful. And it really was that kind of ideal entry-level post. It was also cool to see that Gary started off in shelving as well. So I was shelving books, learning the layout of the library, learning the classification system. It was that kind of classic foot in the door situation, because soon afterwards I applied for a weekend library assistant role, which meant experience of working on the front desk on Saturday afternoons, learning how to use a library management system and dealing with inquiries. So it's then that I decided to study for my library qualification. I went for the Information and Library Studies course at Robert Gordon University, which I thoroughly recommend. And that was mainly actually because they offered a distance learning course. So I could undertake the course while I was still working full time in order to finance the course. I wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise. So I kept on the evening stock assistant post at Glasgow, but I also took on 2 other jobs simultaneously at different higher education institutions. So firstly, on Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays, I worked as an information services assistant at Glasgow Caledonian University, which is very similar to my role at Glasgow, on the front desk, dealing with inquiries. And it was my first time working a little bit with e-resources as well. It was a lovely team there. And I also loved that the library was completely open. There were no barriers to entry for general public. And I'm wondering if this is what maybe started me off on my open access advocacy journey, who knows. But so that was my weekend. Then I, during the week, so Tuesday to Fridays, I was working at the University of Stirling. And this was my very first acquisitions job, but also my 3rd academic library. And actually, I find this quite helpful in the beginning of my career. It meant I got to meet lots of different library teams and library people. I learned the different systems that different institutions used, how different institutions work. You know, they're all different sizes, the different remits, their different policies. It was actually quite good for building up my knowledge of the kind of academic library sector. So in this role, I moved from kind of circulation of content into the acquisitions of print and online materials. I learned all about the different content suppliers and aggregators, all about academic publishers. And it was the first time I learned about the Scottish Higher Education and Digital Library, or SCHEDL, and how collaborative procurement across Scotland works, and how shared services mean much better, more equal access for all of our users. And it was also my introduction to ebook acquisition, which is quite important actually for my career going forward. And what I say next may sound quite negative, but actually explains some of what has motivated me to take the path I did towards library publishing. So I learned all about the different access models for ebooks and how expensive and restrictive they can be. You know, you have kind of one user access models. You know, students have to join a queue to access an ebook. We have credit models. So you may purchase 325 credits for an ebook, which means 325 accesses. You don't actually own the book like you would a print copy, and you got to purchase more credits when you run out. So for books on big undergraduate courses, you know, credits would run out really quickly. It's really expensive. And I also learned a lot about digital rights management. So how locked down electronic content can be, you know, really limited ability to send content to e-readers, really bad accessibility on publisher platforms, also that you can't copy or print very much. So it's kind of, it's not a villain origin story really, but it's a kind of introduction to, you know, some of the frustrations that librarians were facing with actually being able to provide good access to content to our users. So I was in this role for exactly 1 year. And then I went back to Glasgow, although I never actually really left Glasgow. I was still a stock assistant there until 2015, just because I really loved that job. I just loved shelving books. But I was successful for a senior library assistant post in the acquisitions and access department. Now, this was quite a newly formed department when I joined. Previously, books and journals or serials had been in separate teams. So they brought them all together so that we had kind of books, journals, e-resources, databases, digitized readings, everything to do with getting the content to our users into one team. But what it meant was that staff now got to work on a little bit of everything, on a lot more areas. And from my perspective in this kind of role, getting experience in these different areas was really beneficial for my career. So my main responsibilities here were supervising the reading lists and digitized reading services. Reading lists had very recently moved to an online system when I started. So we were saying goodbye to paper reading lists and hello to online provision, aiming to kind of streamline the acquisitions process, where we would get online reading lists from academics. Library assistants could then go through, check that we have enough books. We had an e-first policy where we'd be purchasing the ebook first. And it's the first time I'd seen this move into a kind of electronic first policy. And when an e-version wasn't available, we would offer digitized reading, so scans of chapters or articles that we could make available online. So I learnt lots here about copyright, but also that kind of move from print to online learning. It was also my first experience of supervising a team of library assistants, and my very first experiences of providing training as well, not just to library assistants, but to academic staff on how to use a new system. I also continued my work in ebook acquisitions, experiencing the same issues as I did at Stirling. And in this role, I was involved with setting up some of the first schedule ebook deals we had with publishers, such as with Taylor and Francis and Oxford University Press. And many of these package deals, we got much better access than we did buying them individually. We had kind of unrestricted access to some of them. You could even send them to your Kindle for the first time. So I've added a photograph here. This is from a blog post back in 2014 that we created to promote these new ebook collections. And I guess what I'm trying to say here is, look, you can read an ebook outside on your phone. Wow. Which is really common now, obviously. So next, I wasn't really sure whether to add this in, but actually after the last talk, I'm quite glad I did, because this is such a big part of my career journey. So in August 2016, I went on maternity leave with my daughter. However, it was while I was on maternity leave that a job for Chief Library Assistant in Acquisitions and Access at Glasgow came up. And I was really unsure if I was even allowed to apply for a job while I was on maternity leave, especially as I still had 9 months left before my return. I was deliberating, feeling like I shouldn't do it, like, I'd be messing people around if I wasn't able to start. But I was so glad that I checked in with my manager, because it turns out it was absolutely fine for me to apply. I did apply and I was successful. So that taught me, even if you're on maternity leave, don't let that put you off, just go for it. It also taught me a lot about flexible working policies too. So when I returned, it was to a full-time job and I was keen to go part-time. So I looked into flexible working policies at the University of Glasgow, made my application. But what I ended up doing actually is a job swap with a colleague who was on a 0.8 contract and wanted to return full-time. So that was really good. But I felt very supported in that, being able to kind of fit my life around my job, that was also really important. And then I took further maternity leave in 2019 for my son. And it was this definitely that helped me carry on with my career in libraries, by actually being allowed to go part-time. So the Chief Library Assistant role was another step up in responsibility for me. There was much more management of staffing involved, with schedules and rotas. I was also now taking on staff performance and development reviews for the first time. So that was really great for building up my kind of management experience. I also had an increased responsibility for e-resources management, starting to look after the whole kind of life cycle that I've added there on the slide. But also I got to be involved in a lot more project work as well. One example was leading on a project to set up specific walk-in PCs in the library, where the general public could come into the library and access certain electronic resources for free. So I really enjoyed being able to start kind of working on project management. Another side to my role, which was very new for the Acquisitions and Access department when I started, was that move into open access publishing. And obviously I don't have time in my talk to go into the whole background of open access, but basically there's been a huge drive from kind of funders and from institutions that publicly funded research should be publicly available to anyone around the world. So now I was not just providing access to content for people, I was starting to help researchers to publish their content open access. And this role fell into Acquisitions and Access, as we were managing these big read and publish deals we have with publishers, these big packages of e-journals, where we were not just paying for access anymore, but paying so that our authors could publish their articles open access in journals too. So I'd be paying the invoices for these, and they were astronomical. I was also paying very large article processing charges to journals that were not included in these deals. So these could sometimes be, over £10,000 per article. So it was a really interesting role. I got to work with the research information management team at Glasgow and see all of the developments in the open research landscape. And I could just see that this is a really burgeoning area, a very new area for libraries at the time. kind of constantly evolving, and I had to really keep up to date with kind of knowledge in this area. So I think I've attended probably hundreds and hundreds of webinars, I'd thought. However, with all of the issues with kind of pricing and access to ebooks that I've mentioned, plus now having to pay to publish our own research and seeing the very large profits of commercial publishers, that started to make me think, that with the opportunities we have with digital delivery of content, could we do it ourselves? Can we publish our own research in a much more ethical way? And obviously others had been thinking the same thing too, because I saw an opportunity come up to work on setting up a not-for-profit open access publishing press that would be led by all SCURL member institutions. So I jumped at that straight away. And I was really delighted that I was able to get this role on a secondment basis from Glasgow. So the role is hosted by the University of Dundee, but because SUP is a SCURL project, I would be working mainly with Gillian Daly from SCURL and all of our member institutions. So I'm getting to work with every kind of higher education institution in Scotland. It also allowed me to work from home as well, which was ideal, having two very small children. So I started the role back in February 2022, and I think the biggest thing I learned in this role is project management. When I started, we had a management board and a basic project plan. My role really was to help SCURL get the press up and running from scratch. I was involved in recruiting an editorial board, establishing editorial workflows, things like the peer review process, establishing the platform we publish the books on, how we'd manage metadata, where our books will be discoverable, how we'll provide print copies, all the financial workflows. I also had to set the website up from scratch myself. I created all the communications materials and all of the social media channels. So it's been such a varied role with loads of different work streams, and being the only full-time member of staff on the project was a really great lesson in kind of time management and prioritising workload. But obviously I had lots of support from Gillian and the management board. And it's been really brilliant to see the press flourish. We've now published 3 open access books, and we've got 1 more publishing next month and another 16 in the pipeline. So in this role, what I've really enjoyed is learning publishing skills. I've been sent on copy editing and proofreading courses. I've been on book marketing courses. I got to attend Publishing Scotland's conference. So it's not just been a kind of insight into library publishing, but also the publishing world in general. And I have to say, advocacy has been a real highlight for me too, and I've really improved on my skills in this area, because we all know advocacy for libraries is really essential. Something I've really enjoyed doing in this role has been going out to conferences and events to shout about what SUP is doing and the value of SUP. So that kind of outreach and community building work, connecting with other publishers as well, that's been really rewarding in this role. So I've mentioned kind of throughout really that in my different roles, I've seen this kind of diversification almost of what a library does and what library staff do. And these are 3 of the things I've seen kind of flourish over the last 15 years of my career. So open research, library publishing, and a move towards shared services. So just quickly, open research. So I think this has been one of the areas where we've seen some really big changes to library roles and what we do. So I just want to give a shout out to the Open Research Scotland group, because this has been such a useful, supportive group for me. They're an amazing bunch. They meet twice a year in person and online, and they share best practice. They allow networking and training opportunities, and it's open to anybody with an interest in open research. And it's just such a good way for staff to learn from each other and share their challenges and successes. And they actually won a Hidden Ref Award recently for their work. I also mention this group because it's provided me with an opportunity to be involved with the launch of a new journal, the Scottish Journal of Open Research. So I joined the working group that are setting the pilot issue up. So by doing this, I've now had the opportunity to peer review an article for the first time. I'm also editor on one of the articles. Just think it's been such a good opportunity to improve my skill set in this kind of emerging area. So I encourage anybody with an interest in open research to get involved with this group. And they've also got a JISC mail list too. Over the last 10 years, we've really seen a huge rise in library publishing. Obviously, we've got Scottish Universities Press, but I also wanted to mention the SCURL hosting service. So I think that's another really good example of a shared service at institutions. It's managed by the University of Edinburgh Library and the Edinburgh Diamond team, But what it does, it provides the infrastructure for institutions in Scotland to publish their own open access journals and books. And lots of different institutions do use it. So I know Glasgow, St Andrews, Dundee, UHI, they all provide these publishing services to their academics. So library staff are helping academics get set up, helping them with licenses, with publishing queries, helping them with indexing and usage. So I just wanted to say that really, because I think it shows kind of all these kind of non-traditional really library skills that we're starting to see. And I'm hopeful that these will come kind of bigger roles in the future as we start to publish more of our own research. I really do hope that we'll see more roles like this come up in our libraries. And internationally, I just want to say this is growing too. We've got the kind of Library Publishing Coalition and the IFLA Library Publishing Special Interest Group. So anyone who's interested in this area, definitely have a look at that. And then lastly, so I'm overrunning, of course, another group that I've been lucky enough to help set up is the Open Institutional Publishing Association, which is a community of practice that's supporting not-for-profit open access publishing activities at UK universities. And we've got 25 members, and we've just had Lancaster Open Journals join, and we've had Oxford join as well. And just say this shows that the sector is getting stronger. So Gillian and I were both on the founding committee and helped set up the association. I'm secretary of the committee, so this is a role that I do outside my SUP role. I also take part in the skills working group, where I recently arranged a training session on AI in publishing for members. And there's a picture there on the slide of some of us running a stall at the UKSG conference this year. The idea that kind of all of these different institutions have got much stronger voice together and having shared opportunities to promote and advocate open access publishing. So I wanted to mention this really because it's been a real career highlight kind of setting up this group. So I recommend to everybody look out for opportunities to get involved with groups that may not be directly involved with your role, because it is a great way to build a community. So just to finish about what's next for me, I do have some very new job news, very recent. So my secondment to SUP was coming to an end in February next year. So I will now be taking on the role of Programme Officer in e-resources and content development at SLIC, or the Scottish Libraries and Information Council. So I'm doing the opposite of Martina, of moving from academic libraries into public libraries. So I'm going to be leading on the strategic development and delivery of a national ebooks collection and platform for public libraries across Scotland. I'll be working kind of with the library sector to kind of help deliver some efficiencies for public libraries and, most importantly, providing equitable access to content. So I feel like this role, I've kind of put in bold there, brings together quite a lot of what I've been doing in my previous jobs. So things like shared services. So I've been working with SUP and with Schedule. There's that kind of collaborating at a national level that I've been doing at SUP, that publishing experience that I've had and my experience of working with publishers, but also my journey with electronic resources management. And all of this really is united really by what we're aiming to do, which is to provide equitable access to information for our users. So I will also, I think as well, as it will be my first sector move, so moving into public libraries, I hope this shows kind of the skills that we have from academic libraries are indeed transferable across the library sector. And I'm really excited to get stuck in and learn all about public libraries. But yeah, I'll stop there. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you so much, Dominique. And yep, loads of people clapping there to say thank you so much. That was fantastic, and really great to see a career journey that's kind of followed an emerging trend and managed to take advantage of that in a career sense by spotting where that trend's going and then finding yourself now going on a journey through that onto SLIC. And congratulations on the new role. Really looking forward to working with you in that new role. So thank you for sharing everything today. Has anyone got any questions at all for Dominique? No, I don't think any hands going up, but there's yes, lots of praise coming up on the screen there. So thank you so much once again for sharing your journey. And if anyone has any questions, please do put them in the chat, and we can pick them up elsewhere. Thank you. Okay, right. So we're coming towards the end of the event today. I'm now just going to do a final presentation just around what support the professional body, what CILIPS can offer for career development, and why it may be useful to be part of the professional body. There is a little bit of interactivity. Don't panic. It will not be any kind of groups or anything like that. It is just going to be some Slido. So if you do have a phone to hand or are able to access Slido, then there will be just a couple of questions that we'll ask, and you can anonymously answer them, but no one will be put on the spot. So thanks for sticking with this. I mean, I can't promise to top the wonderful career journeys we've heard today from four brilliant people, but as a professional body, you know, we can offer some additional support that might help you future-proof your career. Some of you may be members already, some of you may not be. Speaking particularly from a CILIPS Scotland point of view here as Director of CILIPS, but much of what I'll talk about will be applicable to anyone in the UK and some things also globally. But apologies for some things might have a particular Scotland-focused nature, but not all of it. Okay, so here's the Slido. So humour me, please do just play along with this. If you can, I'll give you just 30 seconds just to scan that QR code, or you can go to slido.com and put in the code 3473398. And there will be a chance to. We've just got, I think, 3 questions that we just want, and we'll create a word cloud from it. It's just partly because we're nosy, and it's useful to see what your feedback and a couple of questions are. Now I can't see the chat. If you are having any technical difficulties, then do put it in the chat, and hopefully my colleagues Kirsten and Leah, who are on the call as well, can maybe help in some way. But don't worry, if you can't get involved in Slido, then put your answers in the chat or just ignore me completely. But please, if you can, just get involved. We've got a couple of questions coming up in a minute. Okay, this will appear again, so don't worry if you haven't got it down, but I shall move on just now. Okay, so anyone that doesn't know who we are, you possibly do if you're at this event, but I know not many of you will be members, but we are your professional association. So CILIP across the whole of the UK and with reach across the world as well is the professional association. We hope to be the leading voice for information, knowledge management and the library profession as a whole. We want to bring people together, we want to support them, we want to train them, we want to accredit them, and ultimately just unite them and empower them across all sectors, including the academic library sector. The academic library sector is where most members come from across the whole of the UK. So as a sector that many people are finding their way into at different stages. For a variety of reasons, we believe it's never been more important to be part of an overall profession and a professional body. And as you go through your career, we can give you some tools which can hopefully help you. One of the perhaps misunderstandings sometimes of CILIP is that it may be for people who are already qualified and have a postgraduate or an undergraduate degree in librarianship, and then you would join CILIP. That is not the case. Of course, many members will have a qualification, but we want members from all different levels of qualification, career stages, sectors. So no matter where you are in your career, what qualifications you have just now, you'd be more than welcome to join us. If you live and work in Scotland, you also get the benefit of being a member of CILIP Scotland as well. But if you're elsewhere, then you would be a member of CILIP. Okay, so this is the first bit where I need your help. Just to kind of give us a flavour of what are some of the things that an academic library worker in theory, or perhaps you as an academic library worker, if that is indeed the sector you work in, do in 2025 that you may not have done, say 5-10 years ago, something like that. What are some of the tasks which, you know, we've heard about some of them today. So either in your own reflection or based on the wider sector. And it's really good for us to be able to see that, because we have to plan support, training and development for the sector, and it's good to know, and it's also quite good to just share some of those things. Right, very interesting. Yes, AI questions coming up. I see AI coming in a different format as well there. AI, the uncertainty of it. Yeah, so this is obviously something that is coming up, both, you know, in terms of students using AI, or AI in terms of how our systems are using it, and being able to understand how we can actually use it to our advantage, but also the threats and ethical dimension to that. But loads of other great answers there. Having the access, curating data sets with data, connectivity, knowledge of research landscape. And, I think a lot of what's coming through here are technological changes and the influence of tech. And I think what we're finding is higher education and further education roles are being further and further influenced by technology and are being more technology driven, and that of course changes the existing skills that people need, but also will affect the skills that of the new staff that are coming into it. And that in many ways will be a strength, but can also be a real challenge, because it's keeping up with those skills, perhaps skills that weren't in your comfort zone when you first joined libraries, can be really interesting. So thank you. Yeah, AI referencing, e-resources. Yeah, loads of great answers. Thank you for this. Okay, brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. Right, data visualization. Yes, that's a good last entry in there. And I'd say probably live chat came out as the or AI and live chat as the most common new tasks. So that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about live chat, and that's great to understand. So thanks for feeding that back. Okay. Now we'll save all this, so feel free to add more in. But second question, and then I'll leave you alone for a little bit. What factors make someone a professional in an academic library context? We're the professional body. We talk about professional registration, professional skills. What defines that? And there's absolutely no right answers to this. And it's quite interesting for us to hear. And I think one of the things I've noticed since we've been asking this question in different sectors and different formats is the answers we get back are probably, again, different from what we would have heard, say, 10, 20 years ago. Yeah, really interesting there that the biggest thing that's coming out so far is experience and attitude, which I think is absolutely correct. And all these things, though, ethical values, giving advice, work ethic, CILIP membership, not for me to say, but yes, if you, that is certainly part of it. But we are also understanding that some people may be members of other things and can still be a professional. So it's that balance. I think when I started in libraries, there was this kind of understanding that if you had a library degree, you were a professional, and if you didn't, you may not be. Some people maybe had that view, which was not really the correct view, but it was sometimes the perception. And it's really good to see that has changed, because that's absolutely not what we believe at CILIP. It's only what I believe. I think that being a professional is many different things, and it's much more about the values and the behaviors you exhibit. But yeah, so the key things there that came out: knowledge and experience, and I think that's absolutely right, and CPD, which I'll come on to in a minute. Okay, so just very quickly, what does CILIPS say as a professional? This was redefined a few years ago. It was very much that we all come under one profession, that a professional is someone that places ethics at the centre of the work. That came out there, delivers quality services, champions the profession, formally recognised knowledge, reflects, aspires to excellence, maintains skills and supports their colleagues, and leads at all levels. Now, all of those things in that middle really came through almost everybody's, or really it did come through everybody's in different ways, their talks today. And I think that's a key thing to remember, that it's not about what qualification you have. If you have a qualification of some kind, of course, like any qualification, it's an advantage. But you can be part of the profession. You can identify as a professional by exhibiting behaviours rather than particular like job title or things like that. Okay, now moving on. So how do you develop your skills? Now, this is just a little bit about how we can support you to develop skills, but there's lots of sources for that. This is just a couple of them. We've got our Academic Research Libraries Group Scotland. I'll talk a bit more about them later on. We've got SLIC, the Scottish Library and Information Council, as Dominique referenced as well, a great provider of developing skills. SCURL do a lot of things, and SALCTG, of course, do loads as well. But there's lots of different sources, not just CILIP, of course. But we do offer some workforce development, some training, some qualifications. And as Martina referenced earlier on, we have our career mentorship scheme, which I put the link in the chat for earlier. We've got mentors. At the moment, we're lacking mentees. So if you are a CILIP member and you're based in Scotland and you would like to access some mentorship, please do look into that. Okay, so one of the key things which we can do to support you with your professional development is professional registration. So this is you can become certified, chartered, or a fellow, and regularly revalidate. Now, this is not for everybody, but we do think that this is a great way to take a next step in your career. You don't need to have a particular qualification in advance of undertaking certification chartership. You just need to be ready to reflect on your work, gather evidence, and have some critical reflection as part of that. And that can give you a chance to become a chartered librarian. And you can do that, quite early in your career, and it's definitely something that may help you by making you achieve an essential or desirable career in a job advert, or it may just help you become a more reflective practitioner. One of the employers that we work with has said many a time that people who have undertaken this process, you can tell when they're applying for jobs, because they're much more adept at reflecting on their experience and how they do things. We've got loads of support if you ever do want to undertake professional registration. We have online events, we have an e-learning hub. If you work in knowledge management and you see yourself more in that, we can support you with that. And if you are a CILIP member, we can offer financial support. So there's a call that's always out throughout the year for professional development. Can fund yourself to go to a short event or a training, and you can get up to £600 for support for that. So if you do invest in a CILIP membership, you can actually it can more than pay for itself if you do access some funding for the professional development fund. I think I'm safe in saying probably most applications to that fund are approved, so don't rule it out. It is a really, really good tool for getting along to things when I know time is often the challenge, but sometimes it can be finance as well. And just finally, on professional registration, this is just what the view of a member is. Professional registration allowed them to reflect on their career development, and they now feel more connected and committed to my profession. And it is one of the things that does create a real connection between us and members and the profession as a whole. So if anyone does want to talk to us at all about using that to kind of future-proof your career, then please do have a chat with us at any time. Other than that, if you aren't undertaking chartership, we offer regular online learning, an annual conference that happens every year, including the announcement of the Library and Information Professional of the Year, which Sarah Louise was a former and very deserved winner of. But we do have a huge catalogue of online learning and events, and not only can you watch them, but you could also present one of them if ever you felt that would be of interest. And some of them are open to non-CILIP members as well. Many of them are CILIP members only, but keep an eye on our events calendar, because you may find that there'll be something that you can access even if you haven't decided yet to become a member of CILIP. We do regular events. Our ALG is Academic and Research Library Group Scotland, so they're a subgroup of us. They are a special interest group of CILIP, and they recently did an event on wellbeing spaces, which was a brilliant event. But we have loads of other things. Some of these have happened recently, but coming up we have a Scots language in the library event, and these are all listed on our website. And in addition to that, we have the CILIP e-learning hub and CILIP Learn, which is a new service that CILIP are bringing out next year, which will allow you to undertake digital leadership and other online training events as well. So that's kind of all on the CILIP website, and anyone can access them. And we also have some training on the CILIP Scotland website as well. Okay, now one of the other reasons that we want to try and unite the profession is that, as many of you will be aware, the ethical challenges that we're all facing in libraries are growing, and as this quote says, and this is from 1990, but it's still accurate today. There is no issue in librarianship which is likely to get us in the papers than censorship, and I think particularly in the kind of press environment that we have in the United Kingdom does sometimes lend itself to anything connected to censorship issues will often trigger front page headlines, and we've been on it in the past, and I know other libraries have as well. So we are seeing, certainly in the public library and the school library sector, more and more feedback from our members that they are involved in situations related to kind of book banning requests or requests to cancel events, and it's definitely something which has been happening in the States a lot, and now we're seeing it on the rise here as well. Our current president, David McMenemy, is a real expert in this and is also chair of the new CILIP Intellectual Freedom Committee. I'll share these slides, but that link, or if you Google it or click on it when we share the slides, you will be able to access that. But it's a great article that was in our journal about this, and David is willing to support organisations with these things and deliver training and do consider taking advantage of that where possible. And always a good chance to never miss a chance to post a Father Ted image as well. So what helps us with these, and complex and nuanced situations that come up around these ethical challenges, and every single one is different. But what we hope will help is that CILIP have these ethical principles. And it's important, regardless of whether you're a member or not, that when you enter into the library profession, these are the ethical principles which we believe you should try and live to and exhibit in your practice. There's 7 of them here. They're not in order of priority. The challenge would be to try and meet all 7 at all times, and that of course is a challenge, but it's something which, if in doubt and if you're struggling with a challenge in libraries, to look at these as the guiding principles and try and use them to help you in your career. So obviously we've got ethical treatment of users, you've got the advancement of the profession, access to knowledge, freedom from censorship and intellectual freedom, avoidance of bias, confidentiality of information, and the development of information literacy. So we've got 7 principles there. Now, obviously, we should be trying to adhere to all of them. But just a quick final question that I just want to put to you. What of those 7 ethical principles, what do you think is the most important one for your work or your organisation's work in academic libraries? Just have a look at those 7. Again, no right answers, and it's completely anonymous, but it's just quite interesting to see what people think is the most important role of an academic library if you're seeing it through the prism of these principles and these ethical guiding lights. Yeah, I'll just give you another sort of half a minute just to vote there. And then I'll go through what's come out on top. Okay, so I think that, just the last few voting now. Please do just continue to do that. Now, this is really interesting, actually. What we've been doing a lot of these sessions for public library sector at the moment, and what often comes out in the public library sector as the top is either access to knowledge, the human rights, equalities and diversity, or the freedom from censorship. But it's really interesting to see in an academic library context that information skills and information literacy is what comes out as the most important ethical principle. And either way, that's really useful to think, because it can give you a bit of guidance on, that's what you're there for, and that is one of the key principles that is guiding your practice, and that's a really important thing to remember when you're advocating for your service, when you're dealing with a complex situation. So thank you for that, and yeah, access to knowledge is still really, really important, and another absolute key tenet of what we do. Okay, so if you are facing a lot of ethical challenges in your library practice, or you think there may be some on the horizon, here's some really good CPD you can do. This doesn't require CILIP membership. This is open to all. We want this to be accessed by as many people as possible. The Reveal Toolkit is reinforcing ethics and values for effective advocacy for libraries. Now, this is a group of training modules that have been added to our website that was funded by our research fund recently. And you can work through them at your own pace. There's lots of videos and reading, and is a great learning tool. It's maybe something for you to do, or it's maybe something for you to put your teams through or suggest to your teams, or just refer to in part if you are facing something particularly difficult in your workplace. Now, there's both a longer version of this, and we're also the shorter versions as well. So do speak to us if you are interested in accessing this training in some other way. But if not, then do just use it as a CPD tool. It is a really great grounding in how to deal with these situations that we're facing more and more in libraries. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, advocacy is a big thing now. I just wanted to highlight, we're going into an election year. We do a lot of campaigning on behalf of libraries and making sure that they're supported and valued, and we understand that in all sectors, including the academic library sector, we're facing job cuts, we're facing deprofessionalisation, and these are real challenges that perhaps have often been seen as unique to the public sector, but with financial challenges, is also something for both further and higher education as well. So we will be always ready to campaign on behalf of the profession. So do get in touch with us at any time if you would like to discuss how we can support you more with campaigning as we go ahead. One thing we can always support you with, we have branches all across Scotland. We have volunteer committees. If you are looking to gain career experience, connect with others, then please do look at our regional branch network. That's again open to anyone that's part of the professional body and would like to join either if you're in Edinburgh, you're in East Branch. If you're in Glasgow, you're in West Branch. They all have volunteer committees. They all arrange CPD. You can see a lot of fantastic events, including some of the people that are on the call today. We've got a fantastic East Branch that Graham Hawley's part of as well. These are informal, fun networks that can really help you make connections, help you plan events, and just get that experience that might help you in your career. As with that, we also have special interest groups and diversity networks. I'll not go through them all there, but you can see that there's a range of Scotland-specific special interest groups and diversity networks that you could also become part of. The main message of these are that these are fellow librarians who are keen to just help people in their sector, in their region, and provide various types of support. So it is a really, really good way to get involved in something without it being onerous, and would really recommend considering becoming involved in these networks. Quick final plug, one of the other projects that my colleague Kirsten has been leading on is the Winspiration, which is feminism for libraries and librarians, libraries and librarians. Coming next year in March of 2026, there will be the release of this new facet book, Feminist Librarianship. I know Kirsten, I think, mentioned it in the chat earlier on, but do watch out for that. That is a really great example of a shared collection of voices that are speaking about their career, speaking about their experiences, and will be a really, really useful tool if you want to try and, for your own career guidance, if nothing else, as well as a really interesting read. And finally, just to say, if you are interested in hearing more from the kind of things that we can offer, we have a monthly newsletter that goes out to members. We have a regular magazine. Even if you don't want to be a member of CILIPS Scotland just now, do follow us on Instagram. You can see our handle there, as well as our LinkedIn company page. Have a look at those, follow us, see what's coming up. There'll be things that you can access. You'll hear information about the types of things that we offer, whether you're a member or not. So we'd really be delighted to connect with you if we can support you throughout your career. And we also have the CILIPS YouTube, which has all of our previous online learnings on it as well. So thank you. That was just a kind of whistle-stop tour at the end of the day about how we can support you, and hopefully some of it may be of interest. If it's not of interest, that's absolutely fine. But if you would ever like to have a chat about what CILIP can do to support you, then the email address there is at the bottom. That's our team in front of you there, and there's a link there to become a member if you aren't already. And on that note, I'm just going to stop sharing and just come back to the screen. So thank you so much for listening today, and thank you to all of our speakers. Just before we go, is there any final questions that we can answer on behalf of CILIP, or there's any questions to any of the partner organisations such as SALCTG or SCURL? Do please look at their websites for upcoming events and see other ways that we can all support you as you move through your career. And I'll just pause there for any final questions.
We had a few questions coming through in the chat, Sean, just while you were presenting. Okay. Also, a lovely comment, not a question, that CILIPS Scotland, the best part in somebody's opinion, so that was nice. And lovely. Mostly about so fellowship and the criteria for that. So I've included the link to the fellowship page, but we're just having a discussion of how it's about evidencing substantial achievement more than a particular job title or particular number of years of experience. Would that be correct?
Yeah. It's often the criteria is, I don't want to misquote it, but it's much about professional impact and professional influence, and a lot of the evidence you need to provide is it would be about being involved in things kind of nationally over and above your job. So yeah, it's often that suits someone that's perhaps at a later stage in the career, but not necessarily, because some people may have had quite a significant impact before that. So yeah, definitely, I think not enough people consider it, and I think it's definitely something that more people should consider, and not just think, oh, that's for something right at the end of your career when you've done a huge amount. The criteria obviously they're a level above chartership, but it's not so far above that it should be just ruled out by people too quickly.
Fab, thank you. And then we were just confirming that you don't need to undertake the PR levels in order, that if you're ready for chartership, you can go straight in at that level. And also just regarding revalidation, that there's no pressure to revalidate. Your professional registration doesn't expire, but it's more about, again, keeping your development tip top, keeping everything up to date. So just, yeah, a few other questions coming in on PR.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we certainly had I think we had an EGM a few years ago, and CILIP did put forward the possibility of revalidation becoming a kind of essential part, but the members were democratically decided that was not what we wanted, and that's completely understandable. So it's now encouraged and very much encouraged, and is a far easier process than people will often realise. It's very straightforward. It's quite self-driven, and it's more of a kind of personal check-in. Okay, thank you. Now, I don't know, have I missed any other questions, Kirsten? I think, is that everything that was in the chat? I'm just looking up.
No, I think that was us.
Yeah,
just a lot of appreciation for our speakers today.
Great, yes. So thank you on my behalf as well, and CILIP's behalf, and the other partner organisations, for all our career journeys today. If anyone wants to discuss any more, get in touch with anyone, find out anything more that's been explored today, just get in touch with CILIP Scotland at any time, and we can direct you to the appropriate support person, or just give you some guidance. But it was a real pleasure to speak to you all today. Thanks for taking the time. I know a 2.5-hour event can be a lot to take on of screen time. So thank you for all your patience, and thank you for your involvement today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll catch up with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.